deterrence now plans to have foreign criminals deported after serving just 30% of their sentence rather than 50%. Why not kick them out immediately?
Please open the door, it's going in!
And mobile phone theft crackdown. Finally, GBNews has been given exclusive access to a Metropolitan Police operation tackling gang members who've been stealing enormous amounts of mobile phones.
And GB News wins big at the TRIC Awards. Breakfast won the Best News programme for the third year in a row, and our very own Charlie Peters, the Best News Presenter.
And Glastonbury gates have opened. Over 200,000 music fans are heading for the festival, headlined by the 1975 Neil Young and Olivia Rodriguez. And Rod Stewart is in the Sunday Legend slot.
Well, we're going to go straight to Donald Trump and his Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth, who are speaking right now at the NATO summit.
400 miles away, and every one of those tomahawks hit within a foot of where they were supposed to hit. Took out a lot of buildings that Israel wasn't able to get. We took them out with tomahawks. We don't even talk about that. This was a devastating attack, and it knocked them for a loop. And, you know, if it didn't, they wouldn't have settled. If they had won, if we didn't take it out, they wouldn't have settled. Somebody mentioned that to me last night. If that thing wasn't devastated, they would have never settled. Marco, do you have something to say?
No, first of all, on the stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility. We can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone.
It's wiped out.
It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. Yes. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt, but now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
Marco, can I just alert you to one other aspect? So the great thing is you took out the nuclear capability of Iran. This was crucial. You did it in a way which is extremely impressive. But the signal sends to the rest of the world that this president, when it comes to it, yes, he is a man of peace, but if necessary, he is willing to use strength, the enormous strength of the American military. So I think that signal to the rest of the world, this is far beyond Iran, is extremely important. So let me also point us to that aspect of what happens.
They went down, Iran went down to the site afterwards. They said it's so devastated, and they settled when they saw what we did to it. And frankly, if we didn't do that, they would have had a lot of ammunition to keep going. They wouldn't have settled. Somebody brought that up, and 2 Iranians went down to see it, and they called back, and they said, this place is gone. So it's just fake news by CNN, which has got no ratings. It's a failed network. Anybody here from CNN, by the way? Because you're a really disgraceful network. MSNBC, I think, is actually worse. But they're all pretty bad. But yours is good, Katie, I'll tell you.
Mr. President,
you know what Marco reminded me that he did such a nice job there? It was 9 years ago I had to debate this guy. It was not easy. I think he even got better. But when you were into your little thing, I said, this is when I had to debate this guy. You think it's easy to debate him? It's not easy.
How long do you think that the Iranian nuclear program has been put back by these strikes? Years or totally obliterated?
I think basically decades, because I don't think they'll ever do it again. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take their oil, they're going to have some missiles, and they'll have some defense. I think they've had it. I mean, they just went through hell. I think they've had it. The last thing they want to do is enrich. They've been trying to do it. By the way, it's hard to enrich. And, you know, when you look at a site like that, very, very hard to build, very, very hard, very expensive. They spent trillions of dollars trying to do this thing, and they didn't come up with it. And we're actually getting along with them very well right now. But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
If the Iranians do rebuild, would the United States...
If they rebuild?
Would the United States strike again? And I have also a question about Russia.
But I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. Very tough to rebuild because the whole thing has collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the tunnels are totally collapsed.
But if they rebuild?
Well, they've already looked at the tunnels. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally, and it knocked it out. The original word that I use, I guess it got us in trouble because it's a strong word. It was obliteration. And you'll see that. And it's going to come out. Israel is doing a report on it now, I understand. And I was told that they said it was total obliteration. They have guys that go in there after the hit, and they say it was total obliteration. And, I don't want it for me. I want it for the pilots. I want it for the military. They did such a good job. If you were in the Situation Room with me, with the generals and all of the people that did such a good job, and then they get demeaned by these idiots at CNN who can't get ratings, the place is dying, nobody wants to even waste their time going on their shows. So they form with the New York Times, who's dying also. Without Trump, you wouldn't have a New York Times.
And then just changing gears to your meeting with Zelensky later today, can you give us any preview of what the two of you might be discussing?
No, well, we'll discuss the obvious. We'll discuss his difficulty. He's got a little difficulty. Zelensky, he's a nice guy. I mean, I'm going to meet him today. I don't know. I assume we're going to be discussing Ukraine.
Yes.
And it seems like the most likely.
Is there any restart talks there or anything that you might do?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, I've spoken to Putin a lot, and he actually was very nice. He volunteered help on, as you know, on Iran. I said, no, I don't need help on Iran. I need help on Russia. Okay? I said, do me a favor. Help us on Russia, not on Iran. But he was very nice. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. I think progress is being made. I think great progress is being made on Gaza. I think because of this attack that we made, I think we're going to have some very good news. I was talking to Steve Witkoff, who, by the way, is terrific, and who knows more about this subject than anybody, the subject of what we were just talking about. He was on last night with Jesse and with Laura and with Sean. And boy, Susie, he has a great take on it. He just explains it so easily. He's really very knowledgeable. But he did tell me that Gaza is very close.
Mr. President, one follow-up on Iran. Both you and Secretary Rubio and Hegseth mentioned the leak. But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. And you'd think that a media outlet would say, isn't that a great thing? I mean, more importantly for the pilots, for the military, you take their guts out. You take their absolute guts out. They had a tremendous attack. It was a complete obliteration. The other team, the other group, Iran, said, let's stop this. And you know what? Israel said it too. Very smart. They fought like hell, and then they said, let's stop. And they're going to build themselves. And I really see it as sticking. I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
I think we have to join the others.
Yes, we're going to join some other group. Yes, thank you. Katie, one
last question. Do you believe...
She's so good. That's the only reason.
Thank you, Mr. President.
She used to be very difficult, but now she... Go ahead.
Do you believe that this strike on the Iranian nuclear program will lead to the release of the hostages in Gaza?
I think that it helped a little bit. It showed a lot of power. Yeah, I think it helped, but we're going to get separately, even before this, we were very close to making a deal on Gaza. I think this helped, yes. Okay, thank you, Katie.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you, President.
So that was Donald Trump with Secretary General of NATO Mark Rutte there, and also Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor to the President, discussing the situation in the Middle East and whether it has been a success.
Well, he's pretty confident, isn't he? He hasn't used the word obliterate again, but talked about a great success. But he, again, attacked mainstream media, singling out CNN. I find it hilarious. And that singles out these broadcasters.
I love it. And that is because, effectively, this leaked report suggesting that the attack on Iran had not compromised their nuclear capabilities was released by CNN. Now, this is the statement that was put out on X, on Twitter, by Caroline Levitt, the spokesperson for the president. And she said, fake news, CNN strikes again. The alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked by CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. She went on to say the leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows, says Caroline Levitt, what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration.
So no backing down there?
No.
That is a press secretary who does not pull her punches at all.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, of course, if they have obliterated the nuclear threat from Iran, then that does, to some extent, start to generate peace in that region. Israel no longer have an excuse to continue to bomb Iran. The ceasefire has to hold. Obviously, President Trump is there at the NATO summit, where Keir Starmer is as well today, and he has been talking about our increasing incoming nuclear
and quite interesting, Iran has not closed down Hormuz Strait, which would have a dramatic impact on the oil price because of so much stuff, because it would have a detrimental effect on Iran.
Yeah.
And if a regime is teetering on the edge, the last thing it wants to do is inflict huge economic woes on its own people.
We're going to get a little bit more on this story that we are going to be increasing our nuclear capabilities in this country.
Are.
Do we need to? Apparently we have got no money for anything, have we? Oh, we've got money for more nuclear bombs. Do we need them?
Which will be coming from America, by the way.
Funny that. Still to come.
Those music fans are flocking to Glastonbury to get the best seats to see the 1975, is that a band?
Yes.
Right, thank you very much. And Olivia Rodrigo, who's apparently very famous.
First, though, if you don't fancy sitting in a muddy field in Somerset and instead of searching for some holiday sun, here's a forecast for our top European destinations. Don't go anywhere.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of heat at the moment across the Mediterranean. Most places sunny, and the peak of the heat over the next few days will be through central parts of the Mediterranean. A little cooler for the time being through Spain, Portugal, Canaries as well, where it's, well, typically breezy. And it's also breezy for the Balearics, but we've got this plume of heat now through central parts of Europe. Certainly some unusually high temperatures to Italy, into Croatia, and then later on across parts of Greece. Mid to high 30s widely.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day.
Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now imagine this. You spend your entire life dreaming of public service. You work your way up to become the Director of Public Prosecutions. You then become a Member of Parliament, and just next to your constituency is a world-famous museum hosting
I'm imagining it, Tom.
waxworks of famous figures, and you think, you dream that one day you will be featured in this mausoleum, for want of a better word. You become Prime Minister, and you think, now, finally, my waxwork will be on display at the world-famous Madame Tussauds. And then they say no.
And then you find out that Theresa May has one.
Oh.
Yes, so Madame Tussauds, there's Theresa May. There she is in her suit.
Yeah,
she was always one for colourful outfits,
Theresa May has a waxwork there, so does Boris Johnson, of course. It's reasonable to expect the Prime Minister would have thought that he would join the likes of David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson with a waxwork.
Winston Churchill. Yeah. Winston Churchill has one. Harold Macmillan, apparently, was previously displayed. Tony Blair.
Of course.
Tony Blair, of course. But apparently, so Madame Tussauds can't be sure that he'll still be relevant in 5 years' time. That's the reason.
Is that why they've said it? No.
They can't be sure, so they don't want to put the money into it, presumably.
Wow.
I could imagine Keir Starmer commissioning his own.
And yet, Lord Salisbury had a waxwork, the Marquis of Salisbury, Harold Macmillan, and David Lloyd George, of course. But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland...
Think about this.
...does not have a waxwork because he's not relevant.
A spokesperson told the Metro, "We have no current plans to make a figure of the British Prime Minister."
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
What's the time? The time is 9:48, Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew and Bev. Now, Donald Trump has just spoken at the NATO summit in The Hague, and he's been pretty furious with mainstream media, who says they're publishing fake news by suggesting those strikes on Iran's nuclear sites did not obliterate them.
So this is apparently based on the fact that there is the idea that there was a leaked report. He also said the strikes ended the war.
To understand, former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram. Philip, we use this cliché. It's an old phrase. First casualty of war is the truth. Who do we believe? CNN have reported. They say they've got information from the Defence Intelligence Agency, which has been supported by 7 sources, which suggests that the bombing raid only set back the nuclear power facility by some months, whereas Trump said it's obliterated. Do you suspect the answer's somewhere in the middle, or do we believe the president?
I believe the president. I suspect what has happened is, for sensationalism, elements of an intelligence report that's been leaked have been taken out to create that phrase. I'll give you a perfect example. The Gulf War, the 45-minute rule that said Iraq can use its chemical weapons within 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what came out of the Cabinet Office and was published. The actual intelligence document, which I read, turned around and said it is within Iraq's doctrinal ability to release chemical weapons within 45 minutes if the order has been given to get them out of their depots, and they've been delivered to the front line, and the authorization has been given to the forward commander to release them. And the intelligence then went on to say, we have no indication that any weapons have been outloaded or any authorization has been passed down. That was cut down and edited to, they can release them within 45 minutes.
And that was part of what we would now call the dodgy dossier,
Correct.
Philip, because the government was trying to make the case to get public support on side for weapons of mass destruction, which is why we needed to go into Iraq.
Exactly. So CNN have probably seen an intelligence document, but they will probably have taken, because they're not intelligence specialists, they'll have taken out of it what they want to create the sensational headlines.
Let's talk about news from a little closer to home, Phil, if you don't mind. We are on course to buy, apparently, according to a new announcement from Keir Starmer, 12 F-35As carrying American B-61 nuclear gravity bombs capable of killing thousands of people. It's going to cost £80 million. Why do we need them?
Good question. They're 12% cheaper than the F-35Bs, which are the ones that we can use on the carriers and the ones that our air tanker fleet can actually refuel. We're buying 12. Italy and Germany between them, I think, are buying 100. And they are, all F-35As are capable of carrying the B-61 tactical, what's called tactical nuclear bomb, but America controls 100% of the stocks of them. So it's up to America whether they will then give them out to the nations that have the F-35A to use. They can carry a lot of conventional weapons as well, and they've got a slightly longer range than the F-35Bs, but then we can't refuel them. So there's an awful lot of questions around this. It seems to me as if it's potentially a defence cost-saving exercise. It's a political soundbite that's going out to suggest that we're doing something. But actually, the UK's nuclear deterrent is based on the fact, and the strength of it is based on the fact that it is an independent nuclear deterrent. The F-35As are not independent of the United States unless we're going to develop our own nuclear bomb that then has to be certified to be dropped from.
Well, let's jump in there if I can. What do you mean by that, Philip? Does that mean they control when and how we release the bomb? America?
No, yes, they control whether they're actually going to physically give it to you or not. So to do that, you would have to turn around and say, we want to use the device on, here's the threat, we want to use tactical nuclear weapons on this target at this time and everything else. The Americans have got total control over it. They don't over our Trident system.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, when you start to dig into the detail of this? Yeah. And it does also mean that we're going to have American nuclear weapons are going to be stored on British soil for the first time since 2008. Is that accurate?
American nuclear weapons are move in and out of the UK all the time. That's not a big issue because the Americans have got bases that we let them use across the UK, and sometimes there are nuclear weapons in them, sometimes there aren't. But it's the fact that America will control 100% of the stocks. So it doesn't mean that we have an independent airdropped tactical nuclear deterrent capability. It means that the Americans have got total control over it.
OK, Philip, thank you so much. Philip Ingram there, absolutely fascinating. Please come in and keep us informed on this again soon. Still to come this morning, world leaders are about to take a photo together at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. Here they are.
I wonder if Donald Trump's in the middle. Will he be in the trouble? Well, he'll push his way to the front here. No, I don't know who that is. So that's Mark Rutte, who's the NATO General Secretary, welcoming people.
To the right.
He's on the right. We're waiting for Keir Starmer, because that'll be a thrilling moment for our viewers and listeners, because they've never seen
They all
Keir Starmer
coincidentally
before.
got the same suit and tie.
They all appear to wear it. There are some women there, of course, because there are 32 members from NATO who are there. Prime Minister's not turned up. Perhaps he's having what they call a bilateral with the President of the United States. There's another grey, boring man.
Two of them talking together.
Yeah, exactly. But they still call it bilaterals in the official briefings, which is ridiculous. Do you think the Secretary General of NATO is embarrassed about that gushing memo he sent to Donald Trump, which he obviously thought was private, and Trump released it? Oh, Mr. President, you've done so marvellously. Oh, you've done so brilliantly. It was extraordinary. Still no sign of Keir Starmer, because...
President of the Republic of Latvia.
Oh, they're now introducing him by name. So that's the President of the Republic of Latvia. That well-known towering figure on the European political stage. Perhaps Keir Starmer... Perhaps they're saving best for last, Starmer.
President of Sweden.
Right. There should be a question here. Who recognises any of them?
Well, they're all a certain type, are they not?
Yeah. And this is why the Prime Minister can't get back for PMQs today, so he can appear in this line-up photograph. That's what it's about.
Give me
His
strength.
Excellency Mr.
Yeah.
Luis Montenegro.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He should be back
Yeah,
here.
so he missed PMQs last week, if you remember. It was Angela Rayner versus Chris Philp. We missed the name of his latest leader. I know... Right.
If you're listening on the radio, you're not missing anything.
Yeah,
It's just a load of blokes all wearing exactly the same dark blue suit and tie and white shirts, all lining up against a blue-black background, shaking hands with each other at the NATO summit.
And the Prime Minister of Sweden has just been introduced as His Excellency from the Kingdom of Sweden. So Sweden is a kingdom. I wonder why they called him His Excellency. Because ambassadors you call Your Excellency.
Mr. Jakub Milatovic, President of Montenegro.
So he didn't get called His Excellency.
He's the President of Montenegro.
Yeah.
He clearly also got the memo about the colour suit.
And still not a woman.
Not a woman.
Sadly, it seems we won't be able to bring you Keir Starmer shaking hands in tears.
Mr. Peter Pavel, President of the Czech Republic.
Another His Excellency.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Hampshire, the M27 westbound has a collision between junctions 4 and 3, closing one lane. Drivers should find alternate routes. The A14 eastbound in Suffolk between junction 54 Ipswich West and junction 56 Ipswich Docks is congested, with improvements expected later today. The A4060 northbound in Pentrabach is closed for maintenance until 1 this morning, affecting eastbound travel. And on the trains, Great Northern services face disruptions between Stevenage and Alexandra Palace, while the London Overground is disrupted between Stratford and Richmond and Watford Junction and London Euston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 25th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Are you ready for war? The RAF is to carry nuclear warheads for the first time since the Cold War. Our Prime Minister warns we can no longer take peace for granted.
And the picture we were all waiting for before the break. That is Sir Keir Starmer appearing at the NATO conference in the Netherlands with a load of other world leaders to have his pitch taken.
And an intelligence report cast doubt on those claims from Donald Trump and says the US airstrikes only set Iran's nuclear programme back a few months. That is CNN's interpretation, by the way, of that intelligence report.
And here, the Prime Minister is facing an almighty backbench rebellion over his welfare reforms bill, but Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has offered him an olive branch of sorts.
Faster deportation. New government plans want foreign criminals deported after serving 30% of their sentences rather than 50%. We have a better idea. Kick them out immediately.
Please open the door, it's going in!
That is footage of the mobile phone theft crackdown. GB News has been given exclusive access, you don't want to miss this, to a Metropolitan Police operation tackling gang members stealing huge amounts of mobiles. Mark White brings us that.
And GB News wins big at the TRIC Awards with breakfast winning Best News Programme for the third year in a row, and Charlie Peters has been made Best News Presenter.
And Glastonbury's gates have opened this morning.
I can't wait.
Over 200,000 music fans will head to the festival, headlined by the 1975 Neil Young and Olivia Rodrigo. And Rod Stewart is in the Sunday Legends slot.
I've never been to Glastonbury. I've no plans to go. I think you have been.
I have been. It was hell. It was rainy. It was
Of
the
course.
year that it rained. I know it rains a lot, but it was just horrendous. And I just stood in a field of 100,000 people. Couldn't get anywhere near the bar. Couldn't get to go to the loo. It was freezing cold. I was soaking wet. I didn't sit down for about 2 days. And I just thought, what is the achievement in this?
And you slept in a tent?
Slept in a tent. It was just miserable. That's not my idea of fun.
I think we need to send Bev Turner to cover this year's Glastonbury Festival.
I might enjoy it more now.
Well, maybe.
It's just vast, it's massive. And I don't mind a little music festival where there's just, you know...
Can't you stay in these rather posh tents now?
Yes, the glamping tents.
The glamping tents.
That's more my style, Andrew, can't lie that. Or a camper van. We still don't know who won our
No, but we will reveal all very soon on this station.
Right, get in touch this morning, gbnews.com/your say. Get involved with us this morning. Here's Sophia Hill with your news headlines.
Bev, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Top story today, Sir Keir Starmer will announce the biggest boost to Britain's nuclear defences in a generation at this week's NATO summit. Leaders have arrived this morning ahead of day 2, where the Prime Minister will confirm the UK's buying of 12 new fighter jets and joining NATO's nuclear mission, a major step that gives the RAF nuclear strike capability again for the first time since the Cold War. Downing Street says it's about keeping Britain safe in an increasingly dangerous world, with the Prime Minister saying we can't take peace for granted anymore. GB News spoke to Defence Minister John Healey earlier about the industrial benefits for Britain.
It's about strengthening the security within NATO because it strengthens the deterrence that we all depend on, and it also strengthens our UK industrial base because 20,000 jobs are supported by this programme, over 100 companies in the supply chain in various parts of the UK. So this is a good day for security, it's a good day for British industry, and it's a good day also for the strength of the NATO alliance as leaders meet this afternoon here in The Hague.
Meanwhile, President Trump says the US military strikes on Iran ended the war, and he believes it was a total obliteration. Speaking at the NATO summit in The Hague this morning, the US president also confirmed that the US was on board with NATO's plans for Article 5. Conversations have been somewhat dominated by tensions between Israel and Iran, following a fragile start to their ceasefire deal. President Trump replied confidently when asked if the US would strike again.
I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. It's very tough to rebuild because the whole thing has collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the tunnels are totally collapsed. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military.
Back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer says he'll press ahead with welfare cuts, even as Labour MPs threaten a rebellion. The Prime Minister's confirmed next week's vote won't be treated as a confidence issue, insisting the current system is failing everyone and backing a clear moral case for reform. Proposed changes would tighten access to personal independent payments and reshape support for under 22-year-olds. But pressure is mounting, with more than 100 MPs, including senior committee chairs, have signed an amendment that could sink the bill. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives could back the reforms if 3 key changes are made, but has warned that serious flaws do remain. Now, billions of pounds clawed back from the NHS waste will now be pumped into the working-class communities that need it most. That's the pledge from the Health Secretary, Mr Wes Streeting, who will travel to Blackpool today to outline his plan to tackle health inequalities head-on. He says more than £2 billion saved from what he calls wasteful spending, like bloated back office costs and agency fees, will now fund better GP access, more equipment and extra medicines in poorer areas. It's part of the new 10-year plan to rebuild the NHS, and Mr Streeting says it's about getting the basics right where they've been ignored the longest. Police are calling on phone companies to do more as violent smartphone theft spiral out of control. In London alone, 80,000 phones were stolen last year, many snatched by organised gangs targeting people in the street and even raiding phone shops.
Please open the door, it's going in!
GBNews got rare access to the Met's flying squad as they took down a gang accused of stealing hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of smartphones in robberies across the UK. The Met warns manufacturers to step up by cutting off stolen phones from cloud services, making them useless to criminals.
3/4 of those phones that leave the UK connect to networks and cloud services overseas. So essentially they're being reused as a second-hand phone in a foreign market. I think that phone companies could work more closely together to block access to cloud services for those devices. So that phone is still a phone in that foreign country, but it can't connect to cloud services and therefore can't operate as a smartphone.
And GB News has won at this year's TRIC Awards. GB News Breakfast, presented by Eamon Holmes, Ellie Costello, Stephen Dixon and Anne Diamond, scooped the Gone for Best News Programme. And national reporter Charlie Peters won Best News Presenter. The awards are voted for by the public, so thank you to our viewers and our listeners. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour. But now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
Sophia Hill, that was a beautifully read news bulletin. It finished a little earlier.
The act.
Yeah, you were.
She was caught in the act, I wasn't.
Having our breakfast.
This is Britain's Newsroom.
Hope you're having your breakfast at
Live
home as
across
well.
the UK. And I hope you don't speak with your mouth full, because Bev was.
It's toast o'clock, isn't it? If I was at home now, I'd be having a nice little piece of toast with my cup of coffee. We've got our coffee. We just had a little nibble in the background there. Sorry about that. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. Now...
Trump's at the summit. Still, just a few moments ago. Let's go back to the summit. The Prime Minister finally arrived. And here's Donald Trump.
There he is. So Donald Trump on the stage.
I bet he arrived last.
I've no doubt he will have arrived last. There's no doubt about it. And look at the handshake. You can always look at the body language. Look at the iron grip. Who's going to let go first? Here they are, all the men joining up together. That's Mark Rutte, the Secretary-General of NATO there. And they will all be gathering to take their picture.
Yeah.
Sorting out his suit. He's got a bright red tie on. If you're listening on the radio, everybody's got dark blue suits on.
The bright red tie matches his suntan.
I don't think that's a suntan.
No. Yeah, so lots of emails coming in. I'm sure they were all thrilled to know that the Prime Minister... yeah.
So, Rory says, morning, Rory. Can you imagine Keir Starmer engaging an audience like Donald Trump does? Starmer could not engage paint to dry. That is definitely what comes across. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump is utterly authentic. He tells you exactly what he thinks. He shoots from the hips, and that is why he's relatable to most people. Because they actually, I think a lot of people, even if you don't like him, people trust him because they know that he's not spinning things. Trump talking himself up again, says Joanna, disagreeing with me. Iran is rebuilding, she says, and they're laughing at him. And Peter, Morning Peter, says the mainstream media with their pro-Iran, Palestinian, Trump derangement syndrome want everything that America... They want everything that the US and Israel does to be a failure. They would much rather Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah were successful because they hate the West and they hate its freedoms. I think that's very perceptive, actually, Peter. And John says, why would anybody believe Iran for saying that their nuclear enrichment plant has gone. That's what anyone would say to try and stop more bombing. That is a very good point.
Well, I keep making the point too, if it wasn't a nuclear bomb-making facility, why did they bury it deep, deep, deep in the bowels of the mountain? Pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, why else
you
wouldn't
can't enrich uranium safely above ground, though.
Well, we enrich it. People enrich uranium for the conventional nuclear power programme. That's what you do, but only to a level of 3%. The International Atomic Energy Authority say they will enrich it to a level of 60%. What's that for? A nuclear bomb.
So Peter says, well, of course, bombing the nuclear facilities to bits. You're telling me that had no effect whatsoever?
Oh, look, and look who's next to Donald Trump. Keir Starmer. Did he do that on purpose? Would he want to be next to him? I don't think it does him any favours with his base, Keir Starmer, because the base of the Labour Party despise Donald Trump and everything he stands for.
It's a very good point. That is probably the expression of a conflicted man there in Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump is very popular with the people in this country who might be thinking that they would vote for Nigel Farage, the Reform Party, at the next election, who are leaning, what you might say, towards a traditional right. They want Keir Starmer to be more Donald Trump. But, of course, as Andrew says, the Labour base and Donald Trump turns his back on Keir Starmer and
exactly.
They walk away. So they've had their photograph taken at the NATO
summit. And Starmer doesn't know whether to dive in, bad body language, and Trump is talking to other people, but not Trump. And there's Starmer just sort of hanging around. Maybe he's waiting to see if the president drops some papers on the floor so he can scrabble onto his floor and pick them up again.
So awkward. We got a little bit of knowledge from, a little bit of breaking news from Buckingham Palace. They've said His Majesty has known President Trump for many years and looks forward to hosting him and the First Lady later this year.
Well, we know that. He's coming in September. We've known for ages.
Andrew Pearce, have you just undermined our breaking news?
It's not breaking news. We've known for ages.
Well, listen, Cameron Walker is here with the breaking news to explain why this is relevant.
He gave him the invitation in the White House.
Well, so there's been a bit of confusion over this invitation in the White House. My sources tell me King Buckingham Palace not happy with Sir Keir Starmer, that he handed over that letter to the King in front of, to the President even in front of the cameras. That was meant to be a private visit, inviting him in the summer to Balmoral for the King to discuss a state visit later on in President Trump's terms. Now, from my understanding, the King... it was reported in the Times this morning, but from my understanding, the King was a little bit cautious about inviting Trump so soon for a state visit, given what he'd said about Canada wanting to become the 51st state of the United States of America. And, of course, that puts the King in a constitutionally problematic situation because he is King of Canada and the United Kingdom. But, of course, he has to act on the advice of the United Kingdom. Anyway, fast forward to the last couple of minutes, and the Palace has confirmed to me that the official invitation was handed over to the White House last week. And as you said, that statement from a palace spokesperson says His Majesty has known President Trump for many years and looks forward to hosting him and the First Lady later this year. And as you said, Andrew, that is expected to be September as President Trump.
Fascinating. I could never understand how it was going to be a successful diplomatic operation when we'd had the President of the United States trying to turn Canada into the 51st state, and that is the King's realm.
Yeah, well, it's a huge conundrum, isn't it? Because from Keir Starmer's perspective, the Prime Minister, he wants the King to essentially butter up President Trump because Trump has a huge fascination with the royal family, a huge love for the royal family. So the King rolling out the red carpet for President Trump at Windsor Castle is huge kudos for Sir Keir Starmer because it does strengthen that diplomatic relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States, perhaps leading for better trade deals, perhaps leading to better relations when President Trump is perhaps slightly more hostile towards the European Union, for example. But at the same time, Mark Carney in Canada incredibly disappointed, or he says the Canadians incredibly disappointed with the UK government for inviting President Trump for a state visit.
And the idea if he'd gone up to Balmoral, President Trump would not have wanted to be buried away in the wilds of Scotland.
No, so he is expected to be in this summer at his golf course in Aberdeenshire, Turnberry, which is only an hour away from Balmoral Castle, and that was meant to be kind of informal discussions about the state's visit, planning it together, that sort of thing, for a year or two's time. But it looks like from the Prime Minister wants that state visit to happen sooner rather than later, and we have had confirmation from the palace in the last few minutes that it will definitely be happening, a full bells and whistles state visit for President Trump this September.
The most surprising bit of that story, Cameron, is the fact that that King Charles did not give Keir Starmer permission to hand over that obsequious kind of that invitation on the global stage in the White House.
Yes.
So King Charles was sat at home watching that and went, hang on a minute.
No one told me.
No, you weren't supposed to do that in public. That was a private gesture. So either Keir Starmer has misunderstood the nature of that invitation,
I think
he cares so little about what King Charles thinks that he used it to his advantage and leveraged that relationship with it.
It's the latter.
The palace told the Times the idea was that the letter would be handed over in private to Donald Trump at the same time that he is reminded or encouraged not to bring up the 51st State of the United States of America.
And I wonder if he'd have dared to have done that, Starmer, if we still had Queen Elizabeth on the throne. Who'd been a monarch for 70-odd years. I doubt it.
We're not sure.
Thank you, Cameron.
Fascinating, Cameron.
For giving us that.
Now, nuclear warheads will be carried on British fighter jets in a return to the Cold War era.
Speaking at the NATO summit in The Hague, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said we can no longer take peace for granted in an era of what he called radical uncertainty. Britain currently has approximately 225 nuclear warheads, with 120 of these operationally available. So how many more do we need? Mark White, let me just read that again. So Keir Starmer, we can no longer take peace for granted, which would suggest we have been taking peace for granted, apparently. I would rather none of our governments take peace for granted, frankly. But he said we're in an era of radical uncertainty. What is he talking about? Who is going to come and try and bomb this country?
Well, we are, certainly. It's indisputable that we are in a very dangerous place globally in what we're seeing in wars in Ukraine and wars in the Middle East, with the instability over North Korea, with potential threats from China to invade Taiwan. That is beyond dispute, I think. In terms of whether anyone would actively go after the UK, possibly, possibly not. I mean, who can predict the future and how things might deteriorate? The fact is, if you believe in a nuclear deterrent, then we've got the nuclear deterrent, and that should be the best functioning nuclear deterrent possible. We are the only major power that has nuclear weapons, that has only one delivery method for these nuclear warheads, and that is the ageing Vanguard submarine fleet. These are going out to sea, 204-day missions, which is just incredible. And for such an ageing fleet of submarines as well, that won't see replacements for the better part of a decade come on stream. If anything happens to these submarines, we have no delivery method for our nuclear deterrent. Now, sorry, but the difficulty with the plan for this government is this is not aircraft to carry our nuclear deterrent as such. These will be tactical nuclear warheads that will be controlled by the United States. So they're kind of battlefield weapons that are not the kind of weapons of mass destruction as such that you would see dropped on cities. They would be used to perhaps take out an army on a battlefield, something like that. But that will be controlled by the US. They will say when or where we can use it.
Literally on a screen, somebody in America is going to press the button.
Well, it wouldn't quite be like that. It would be NATO missions. So if NATO got involved in a war with Russia, say, and then we decided that Russia had maybe invaded Poland, we wanted to take out a whole division, then as part of that, we might drop, God forbid, tactical nuclear weapons on a division of Russian troops. But that would be part of a NATO mission that the US would sanction. Right. We wouldn't be able to, as we can at the moment, with our own independent nuclear deterrent, decide that we need to act in our own interests and fire a nuclear weapon. We would need the US say-so on that.
Planes move quickly. These ageing old Vanguard subs, how quickly can they move if they're needed to launch? I mean, I suppose the missile goes quickly and it's got a long reach, but...
Well, the thing about the nuclear deterrent is it's at sea.
Yeah.
So there is always at least one nuclear submarine at sea somewhere in the world. They never tell us, deep under the ocean, ready at a moment's notice to deploy that nuclear deterrent if required. But the fact is, as I was saying, these are old submarines and badly in need of replacement. So if it was a move to get airplanes that would carry our nuclear deterrent, that would be one thing that, if you believe in the nuclear deterrent, would be welcome. But taking on board US tactical weapons that they have the say as to whether we can or cannot use them, to me, I'm not so sure that's the best investment.
Why can't we build our own?
Well, we might well do that. You just never know further down the line what it might be. The other issue that I've got concerns about as well is this is the F-35.
Yeah.
We've got the B variant, which is vital to our carrier strike groups, but they're being delivered at a glacial pace. We're supposed to get 138 of them. We've just got over 30 of them at the moment, and half of those are required for training. So, you know, we've got about 18 available to us. All 18 are currently being used on the HMS Prince of Wales carrier strike group that has gone off to the Indo-Pacific. But that's only half of what they're supposed to be able to carry in a time of war, 36. If we get the F-35A variant to carry these tactical nuclear weapons, does that mean that the B variant, if you're following me, for the carriers is going, we're not going to buy as many of them, then rendering the carrier strike, you know, less potent than it might be?
It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating. And so the NATO meeting is going ahead, and of course there he is again. Donald Trump is sitting next to our Prime Minister.
That's right. Live footage here from NATO.
I still don't think this plays at all well for a Prime Minister battling to see off a huge, huge revolt over benefits, cozying up to a president who's told him he has to spend 5% of our gross domestic product on defence. I think it's a very bad look for the Prime Minister. Just think the optics, as per usual for Starmer, are terrible.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing that they might even have to delay the vote next Tuesday because they could lose it.
But I think the issue is it doesn't seem that he's that bothered about domestic issues, does it? We just keep returning to the idea that he seems quite ambivalent about whether he's going to leave vote, and he should be.
Well, let's take a listen now to what Donald Trump said about mainstream media, and he did not mean GB News.
This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group. And not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick.
That would be so awkward. You've got the reporters there from CNN, MSNBC.
Look,
he's angry.
Yeah.
He's really angry. He hates it when the press is not working what he sees in the interests of America and putting America first, because by undermining his bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities, he's saying you are undermining the safety of this country.
Don't call them scum. Scum is a really terrible pejorative. Do you remember Angela Rayner went on about Tory scum at a Labour conference and she'd had a few? Wasn't it good? She apologised eventually.
Right, don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more to come this morning. This is Britain's Newsroom. Pound and Parry will be with us as well after the break. Don't go anywhere. Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Vegetarians now have a greater desire to wield power more than their meat-eating counterparts. I mean, you like a sausage, don't you, Biggins?
I like a sausage, but I have gone off meat per se, funnily enough, as I'm getting older. I think there are, you know, it takes a lot of eating a piece of meat, if you pardon the expression.
And the older you get, the more you find that it takes a lot of eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I must admit, I have more of a conscience about eating meat as I get older.
Yeah.
And that's a fondness of animals brings that. And if you ever go on Instagram and you look at cows and horses and pigs,
they're wonderful.
They're all affectionate and
know,
incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there we are, putting it into our mouths and eating it.
What do you think about the move to enforce vegetarianism on people, though? Because especially in schools and some universities, there's this trend for meat-free Monday, where there's this enforced absence of meat on children. I think it's ridiculous. Let kids do what they want, to be honest. Within reason, obviously, a healthy diet, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I think, like, you know, I don't eat meat, the husband eats meat. It's not an issue. Eat what you want. But I think that the fact that they're trying to force this into schools, look, let kids experiment, give them a vegetarian option.
Yes,
let them
and all
see
schools do that.
Just options.
It has just become political, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I know children are often told that eating meat is terrible for the environment, but importing avocados thousands of miles is also terrible for the environment.
But also, I mean, a lot of vegetarian meals are certainly processed vegetarian meals have got a load of salt and fat and sugar in them, so they're actually worse for you than eating a lean piece of meat.
I think the tide is turning now, because the new trend amongst young people, particularly young men, is protein. Chicken, breasts, tuna. That's the new trend, to get as much protein in them as possible. It's very difficult to do when you're vegetarian.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got the team here, Statler and Waldorf. Here he is, Mike Parry.
Thank you.
Here he is. What's your name, Stephen? Can you remember?
This morning it was Stephen Powell.
We do not want you to replicate the language of the President of the United States.
Why not?
However,
it's effective.
However,
it's
let's
incredibly
talk about
effective.
it,
Because Keir Starmer, I'm sorry, the leader of the United Kingdom, has become an international embarrassment. OK.
So
we were going to talk about, you know, UK to match China and Russia with nuclear jets. This comes from Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister says we can no longer take peace for granted. What a profound announcement! This is a man who spent 72 hours not being able to work out whether President Trump had done a good thing or a bad thing in trying to get rid of the nuclear threat from those medieval barbarians, Iran. He couldn't, but Donald Trump got the thing sorted with one expression of anger to a group of journalists. It went round the world, and he said more in those 10 seconds than our leader, Keir Starmer, has said in the 12 months he's been in office in Downing Street.
How come you've gone from the President of the United States dropping the F-bomb to the potential for this country actually dropping something more serious? What's the connection there?
It's never going to happen, that's why, because what I'm saying is it's another empty statement.
You peacenik.
Hang on.
We can no longer
Let's just
take
jump in.
peace for granted.
What a stupid, bland, cliched remark. We can no longer take peace for granted. I rather assumed the British Prime Minister never took peace for granted, whoever he or she was.
No, the oldest truism, of course, is, you know, you hope for peace, but you prepare for war. We all know that. What is different about this is it's a completely different sort of war. This is not two armies facing each other on Lunenburg Heath. This is a civilianised, asymmetric, civilian-based war.
I had worked that one out, thank you.
But it's a totally different war nowadays.
Yeah, but this is the thing. But he's saying, no, we've got to be prepared for peace on these shores. Sorry, for war on these shores. Where is that threat coming from? Like, call me naive, and sometimes I am. But who is going to try and bomb this country, Stephen? Who wants...
But who's infiltrating our country? How do we know that people coming across the channel in dinghies are not agents of Iran or Russia?
But we're not going to nuke ourselves, are we?
Yeah, well said. You know, I'm sorry.
In a few seconds, you can disable an aeroplane, £30 million worth of damage
they did it last
RAF
week.
aircraft last week.
And nobody's paid a price.
You do that, multiply it 10 times, it can cause all sorts of damage.
But Mike, so the idea that there's some devious fifth column that actually, again, infiltrate and rise up in the nation...
How naive are you? Russia have been doing it for the last 10 years.
Sorry, but that simply isn't rubbish. Look, the question about the people who actually got into the RAF base, that is to do with poor security.
Yeah,
it's not to do with some fifth column
Yeah,
that
but they could have had a bomb.
Of course they could. They could have had an explosive.
Exactly. Bombed 3 of our planes, and we wouldn't have even known the bombs were there.
There's no read across from that to the idea of some evil fifth column.
I'm sorry, but I think there is. By the way, as a former serviceman yourself, are you not embarrassed that the United Kingdom Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is held in such contempt by the President of the United States of America and the leader of the free world that he hardly bothered to tell him about the attack on Iran until seconds before those bunker-buster bombs
the only
went
people
down.
that the President of the United States has respect and admiration for seem to be Putin and Netanyahu.
Now, can we just...
So I have to say, I'd be quite happy to be in the different...
On the Prime Minister, what do you make of this extraordinary revelation coming out today, that when he gave the President of the United States the invitation, the smart envelope from the King...
From King.
The first the King knew about it was presumably he was watching, because the King had thought he was going to see the President in Balmoral. The King, Trump's coming to Balmoral, coming to Scotland to see his golf course. They could have had a very friendly chat. It had been much less formal. He did not know, bearing in mind the diplomatic difficulties he has, because he's also King of Canada, and Trump had tried to make Canada the 51st state. He exploited the King and the royal family.
Andrew, you know and I know that wouldn't have gone to base one without the King being involved. There's no way on God's green earth that the King would not have known about that. I'm sorry. You know about the relationships between government and the palace. You know about the First and Fifth Estate. You know the way it works. There's no way that Keir Starmer could have produced that envelope without...
Well, I don't agree. I don't believe King Charles III would ever have agreed to be part of a publicity stunt like that. A publicity stunt which Keir Starmer used for political purposes to up the political
very effective
game.
it was too.
It was very effective.
I don't know what...
But can we agree on that?
I totally agree. You should use the Royal State... The Royal State visit should be some heft for negotiation. We haven't got the trade deal signed off properly yet. We've still got 25% tariffs on our steel.
Yeah. Well, we're down to 10% on most things. We're damn sight better off than most of the European Union.
Yeah, but we're still in a lot worse off position than before Trump became president.
So is the rest of the world.
Yeah, but should he... It's unprecedented to have a second state visit. Already, so soon?
Well, the thing is, Drew, one of our viewers at home, has very keenly pointed out the woke king, he says, timing his statement to help out his mate Starmer again. It's disgusting misconduct in office. Saying that this statement that King Charles has announced today about we're looking forward to welcoming Donald Trump does help Starmer and NATO.
Number 10, I'm afraid, can say to the King they want a statement.
It's intensely disrespectful to His Majesty to refer to him as his mate Starmer. I'm sorry, we have better language than that when we talk about the King of this country. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable.
Right. Well, the King advises ministers decides. The King will have to do as his government tells him.
But don't forget, the monarch meets the chief whip every week. There's an audience every single week.
Starmer would not have wanted the King to open the Canadian Parliament, but of course he has no authority in Canada.
How do you know that he wouldn't have wanted him to?
Of course not. The diplomat, because of all the jokes about the 51st state. And the King couldn't have pulled the president's leg more if he tried.
Can we just get the single most important question that's been asked today is the one that Beverly said. Who is actually physically going to invade us? And the reality is, we're not going to have Russian boots on British soil, but we could have an encroaching Russia across Europe, and it could get very,
I don't
very
think
close.
so. I don't think
we have to be really careful.
No,
remember,
let's answer Bev's question.
Yeah, but genuinely, I mean, we've got a whole generation of anxious teenagers in this country at the moment, and we keep telling them they're going to end the war because of the green issue, that we're going to die of COVID. Like, there's all sorts of anxiety. I've got my teenager here doing work experience today. Can we all just tell them they're not a threat? They're not going to die because we're not going to be... No one's going to be bombing.
I'm surprised Stephen thinks that Russian tanks will roll across Europe. They won't. Be missiles.
Not after
She's set on a career in broadcasting. Now she's met Mike Parry and Stephen Powell.
Go and be nice to my daughter. Get her to make you a coffee. Give her a job to do.
No, the idea that missiles actually could be fired.
Stephen,
listen, we need to move on, gentlemen. Huge rebellion for Keir Starmer over welfare reform still to come this morning. 60-second news update with Sophia. Here she is.
Very good morning. The news headlines at 10:33. Keir Starmer is set to announce the biggest boost to Britain's nuclear defences in a generation at this week's NATO summit. The UK will buy 12 new fighter jets and join NATO's nuclear mission. Meanwhile, President Trump says the US military strikes on Iran ended the war, and he believes it was a total obliteration. Speaking at the NATO summit in The Hague this morning, the president also confirmed that the US was on board with NATO's plans for Article 5. Back in the UK, Keir Starmer says he'll press ahead with welfare cuts, even as Labour MPs threaten a rebellion, as he confirms next week's vote won't be treated as a confidence issue. Police are calling on phone companies to do more as violent smartphone theft spirals out of control. 80,000 phones were stolen in London alone last year as organised gangs targeted pedestrians and phone shops. And more than £2 billion saved from wasteful NHS spending is to be diverted to working-class communities that need it most, as Health Secretary Wes Streeting sets out his upcoming NHS reforms. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Still to come this morning, is it right for the government to cut disability payments as Starmer faces an almighty rebellion? We're going to be debating that next.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lot of cloud around today, humid in the south, increasingly so, with the potential for some showers, and later the risk of thunderstorms for some. The cloudier zones across the UK will be prevalent across Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, with some outbreaks of rain and drizzle during the morning, tending to push north and lift by the afternoon, so some brighter interludes emerging, but sticking with the cloudy theme, I think, on the whole. And feeling humid, temperatures reaching the mid to high 20s across parts of the south, fresher for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, high teens, low 20s. Just about anywhere could catch a shower, but the main cause for concern is later on across southern parts of the UK. Whilst it stays quiet for Scotland, some cloudy intervals expected as we end the day, but also some brighter spells across central and western parts. Northern Ireland generally cloudy, 18 Celsius, pleasant enough for the time being, but some outbreaks of rain are starting to move in from the west at this stage. However, you can see the showers developing, drifting north from northern France as we end the day. And the main risk area for some very lively thunderstorms is the far southeast, parts of Kent into Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, where there could be frequent lightning, large hail, gusty winds and torrential rain. However, there's every chance that it will just avoid most land areas and stay out to the east. Nevertheless, we've got more extensive areas of rain moving in from the west as the night goes on, and it's a wet start across Scotland, Western England and Wales first thing tomorrow. Any showers or thunderstorms that do develop in the southeast tend to move away at this stage, and the weather in the west drifts its way eastwards, turns more showery, and brighter skies emerge by the afternoon. So still some showers, especially for northern and eastern parts of England, but otherwise plenty of sunshine on offer and feeling a little fresher once again. Winds pick up later, particularly in the north.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. There is a queue on the A92 southbound between Bankhead and Red House Roundabout due to a police incident on the A921 southbound at Red House Roundabout. Expect delays and take care on approach. In Surrey, the M3 eastbound has a broken down vehicle between Junction 4 and Junction 3, closing one lane. Normal conditions are anticipated shortly after 10:30 this morning. The A4060 northbound at Pentrabach is closed for resurfacing until tomorrow morning. And on the trains, expect disruptions on Avanti West Coast between Holyhead and Llandudno Junction, and Great Northern services between Stevenage and Alexandra Palace. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
10:38. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
So the Prime Minister says he's not facing a confident vote next week when the MPs vote on disability benefit cuts. That's possibly it won't be next week because it's possible he might have to postpone the vote.
So as many as 108...
No, it's more than that.
More than that now.
Over 120.
Backbenchers have signed an amendment that would halt the government's proposed changes, which is just an extraordinary turn of events given that the majority that they have at the
166, 170, and they're not even 1 year old.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary, unprecedented revolt so early in a new government. So we're going to debate this with...
former political advisor James Price and former Conservative MP Alex Stafford. So, morning, gentlemen. Shall we come to you first, James? How bad is this for Starmer? How does he manage such a rebellion at this stage in his parliament?
Well, it's so bad that you've got two Conservatives on here having to debate the substance of the policy itself, because so much of that vast parliamentary Labour Party is so clueless or spineless or perhaps a mix of both that they won't come on and do this. This is the first time any of them have shown perhaps any kind of independent thinking at all. Unfortunately, I think it's probably the wrong thing, because they just have no concept of how bad the public finances are and what serious knock-ons there would be of a government with a majority of this size, as you say, failing. What will happen to the markets, the ability to borrow, to service our debt, to do all these other things in the wider economy? Because at the moment, they're talking about savings of £5 billion a year, which sounds like a lot to all of us here, perhaps, but that's a tiny drop in the ocean with the £2 trillion budget for this year, and they're having all of this political pain for very little gain at all. It's a complete mess.
Before we bring in Alex, I just want to ask you, is it the right strategy to will the Chancellor out, who must be the most unpopular Labour MP in Parliament, I'd thought, because of the disaster of her national insurance and all the rest of it, to say to MPs, you must do this because otherwise Keir and the government is in real trouble? Is that the right strategy?
I'm not sure they've got that many popular cabinet ministers to pull on. Who are you going to have instead? Ed Miliband, who's busy making us have the most expensive energy in the world. You're going to bring on Bridget Phillipson, who's busy trying to destroy all of our schools, or David Lammy, who's trying to give away all of our territory. Maybe Reeves is the worst. For anyone who's just watched the end of Clarkson's Farm, and he says, how could this be any worse? They flash that picture of Rachel Reeves up on the screen. So I think you're right. But who else have they got to do this? And Rachel Reeves, despite lying on her CV, still does have more private sector experience than anybody else in that whole cabinet.
Alex, are you one of those who thinks they're actually right to do this? They've got to cut these disability benefits?
No, I think it's completely the wrong thing. I think they need to get the welfare budget under control hugely, but they're going after the wrong people, as usual. And this is classic Keir Starmerism. He went after the old people, winter fuel allowance, and now he's going after the disabled people. Of course, cuts need to be made, but you should focus on where the money is going and going wrong. Look, according to DWP figures, 0% of PIP awards are fraudulent, and only about 1% is overpayment.
Yeah, but why are they going up so much? 1,000 a day. I don't buy 1,000 people a day having these terrible mental illness problems a day, every day, and that's going to keep going up and up and up.
And we need to look at why that's happening. But the most important category, though, is universal credit. About 13% of all universal credit is an overpayment. Why is the government not going after the DWP for the overpayment? About 11% of universal credit is fraudulently claimed. Why is the government not targeting the fraudsters? Why is it not trying to target the DWP who's overpaying the money, rather than going after the disabled people? Now, look, PIP by itself has quite stringent categories to actually get people eligible for it. The government's people are already passing that. Why is the government targeting people, often who are clearly disabled, clearly need that to survive? They should go after the fraudsters first and then look at other aspects.
Yes, just going to say, we're reading on the front page of the paper today, blocking the welfare cuts, it's an £80 billion bill. We've got no money, we can't pay for sick people. Oh, we're finding £80 million to buy more jets. This is what will confuse the British public. Trust me, I'm confused by your ability to do that. And it doesn't... Who are they appealing to with that, James?
Well, it's a very good couple of questions you've got there. It isn't appealing to anybody at all. Labour did win a big majority, as we know, but they did win it by default, right? By my lot and Alex's lot sadly losing.
Being rubbish.
They weren't. Well, as Labour are discovering, it's pretty difficult because unless you do the really fundamental changes, which is changing the civil service and changing the kind of bureaucracy.
You had 14 years to do that, and you didn't.
Well, I mean, there was a coalition for almost half of that time. Right. Dems not wanting to do it, and then there was COVID and all these other points, right? But I agree. And Labour are learning this now, that they're not able to get serious, sensible things done, or even have a kind of coherent message, as you say, about announcing jets being bought at the same time as these kinds of cuts. Because the government isn't really the government on these things. Alex makes a load of great points about some of the stats coming out of this particular department. But this is a department that has tens of thousands of people working there, has no ability, seemingly, to see who actually really does need this money versus people who don't need it. And as you say, 1,000 people a day starting to say this. I'm with you. I don't think that all of these people are genuine. Some of them will be, many of them will be, and no one here would disagree with the idea that people who really need this help should get it. But I don't think it's a kindness just to send taxpayers' money to people who say they're poorly and to get better.
Labour MPs can smell blood, they can smell weakness because they U-turned on winter fuel, so I think they can now force them to U-turn on this. If they U-turn on this, where's the credibility? Where are they going to find the money?
Well, I think they've lost credibility ages ago. But once again, they need to target the fraudsters and with universal credit. Now, when I was an MP, I had again and again cases of fraud, of universal credit fraud, where people going in with fraudulent documents to the job centre. What did the job centre do? They said, we're not accepting it. Did those people get arrested or looked into? No, they just went to literally, they walked back out of the door. And again that happened. We should be focusing on the people, the bad people, rather than penalising people who, frankly, might need the money to live. And again, Labour going after the weakest, the most vulnerable people in society. They want to pretend to look tough. They want to pretend that they are doing something strange. And instead, they're just a bunch of bullies, fundamentally, going after the weakest in our society.
Where's this going to end? Do you think they're going to... I mean... sorry to put... Are they going to have to pull this for a bit? Because how weak would that make the Prime Minister look? With a majority of 165.
Yeah, really weak. I think some of it depends on what the Conservatives do. I think Kemi Badenoch is saying today, if you agree with some of the Tory requests, they'll be able to back it up again.
She's just playing politics. Of course she is. Well, quite right. She's leader of the opposition.
To some extent. But that politics is, again, about reducing the overall bill, because you say there is no money kicking around. My concern is that this gets pulled, and then the reaction in the market, our ability to borrow money. And people go, oh, you Tories, you're always just talking about the economy. But that actually means no money for the hospitals, no money for schools, no money for our defence, because, you know, the report that came out yesterday that says for the first time in decades, the British mainland is perhaps looking at actual threats from state actors. And I know that this is, and Alex is disagreeing, this is not going to be fixed by just these sorts of cuts. That's true. But it's indicative of the fact that this party, the Labour Party, is going to be incapable of getting the public finances sorted at all at a time when they're incredibly weak.
Now these arguments, James, are the exact same arguments the Labour Party put to us last year about the winter fuel cuts. If you didn't have these stringent cuts against old people, the economy will go down the Swanee. That's
there was going to be a run on the pound.
Exactly.
And that's right.
We can't
that's what Lucy
buy,
Powell, the Commons leader, said.
We can't buy Rachel Reeves, Lucy Powell's arguments for this. You've actually got to send a message saying we're not going to target the most vulnerable, but we are going to look at the people, the fraudsters, the people who are taking the mick. And where is that in the Labour plan?
But it also comes down to their value system. It comes down to their pure ideology of what they stand for. And that is what I find very difficult to pin down with this Labour government. Because you know what really helps mental health issues? A good job that pays you well and prospects and a sense of hope and optimism that everything will be OK. That's why so many people are struggling with their mental health, because they just feel depressed about the state of the country. You lot didn't necessarily do any better. Right, James Price and Alex Stafford, thank you so much. I enjoyed that debate, gentlemen. Right. Still to come.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting's outlining NHS spending plans in Blackpool. If you want to keep up to date on that riveting speech, you can scan the QR code on your screen now or head to GBN2 on your YouTube. You know, I don't know what anybody needs.
If you want to watch Wes Streeting, pick up your phone, go onto there. When we put the QR code, you take a picture of it with your camera,
really?
and then that'll take you, so clever, straight to Wes Streeting. Or go into youtube.com, look for GBN2, and you'll find Wes Streeting there.
Or just stay and wait for us.
Yeah, I'll just stay here. First of all, we'll be back, though, after this forecast for the European weather. Here you go.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Plenty of heat at the moment across the Mediterranean. Most places sunny, and the peak of the heat over the next few days will be through central parts of the Mediterranean. A little cooler for the time being through Spain, Portugal, Canaries as well, where it's, well, typically breezy, and it's also breezy for the Balearics, but we've got this plume of heat now through central parts of Europe, certainly some unusually high temperatures to Italy, into Croatia, and then later on across parts of Greece, mid to high 30s widely.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back. Labour are bringing in new laws to allow overseas criminals to leave British prisons after serving only 30% of their term instead of 50%.
I talked to a human rights lawyer and partner at Howe & Co, Albert Harwood. Good morning to you, Albert. I'm looking at this. This could mean currently that would release about 500 prisoners a year from our jails at a cost of $54,000 a year. That will save $27 million annually. It's not going to do much to solve the prison crisis, is it? 500 prisoners a year. Why don't we just deport them the moment they're convicted?
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Ben. This, as you say, is part of a wider policy by Lord Timpson, who's obviously is renowned for trying to deal with the issue of overcrowding in prisons. So this is just part of the process, as you say, the immigration. So I'm not sure what the percentages are in terms of how many people of the prison.
There's 10,500 foreign criminals in our jails out of the population of about 80,000.
So yes, this is a general view of rehabilitating all criminals, and this forms part of that. In terms of the cases, they are looking at cases where Article 8 apply as well, and that's obviously one of the other issues.
Albert, is it not a case that what would have to change for us to be able to deport criminals straight away once they're found guilty back to their home country?
Okay. At the moment, what you have in place is obviously the judges who are following the law. The law at the moment says that people have to be deported unless there's a right of appeal. Now, the right of appeal, they'd be looking at things such as Article 8, which is family life, private life. So with that, they'd be taken into consideration. So, for example, only a non-British citizen obviously can be deported like this, but they may have a British child. Now, that British child may have been with the family for, 10 years, something like that. So there is a rule of the best interest of the child, so the courts will take that into account. But,
right.
On a general point, the view is that we do have rules in places, and if people have broken the rules, then obviously, and they've gone through the appeal process, then they should be deported.
OK, thank you. I'm sorry it was so short, but really interesting. Albert Harwood there from Howe & Co. Lawyers. Don't go anywhere. Quick break for the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a rather cloudy start to the day, though turning brighter by this afternoon. Can't rule out some showers though, and for many it is going to be another warm and muggy feeling day. And where we see the bulk of the cloud this morning, that's going to be where we see this weakening frontal feature just to the north of Wales and central parts of England, where at times we could see some drizzle also across southern parts of Wales, and also a fair few showers just moving their way into western parts of Scotland, northern parts of England. These should be mostly light, and by this afternoon there should be plenty of bright or sunny spells, but once again a few showers just starting to clip into the southwest. But for many it is going to be a warm and muggy day, particularly across the southeast. Highs of around 28 degrees Celsius here, but a chance that a few localised spots could be a degree or two higher. So to finish off the day then across Scotland, once again plenty of clouds, still a few showers clipping into western areas, and similar for Northern Ireland, a cloudy end to the day, but seeing a few more breaks in those cloudier skies across northern central parts of England. But across western Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall, starting to see some showers push up here, and it's really across this south and southeast that there is a risk of seeing some quite heavy showers during parts of the night, particularly as we head towards the morning. Parts of Kent, for example, could see some quite heavy, if not quite thundery showers during most of the night. But by the early hours of the morning, most of these should have cleared away. But plenty of rain still moving in from the west, this heavy at times. And for many, once again, it is going to be a warm, muggy and quite uncomfortable night, particularly across the south. Plenty of outbreaks of rain by Thursday, sweeping their way eastwards. This could turn heavy and blustery at times, particularly across Scotland, but most of this drifting eastwards by the time we reach the afternoon. So once again, plenty of bright and sunny spells by the time we reach later into the afternoon, and feeling a little fresher too, but still warm in the sunshine, highs reaching 25 degrees Celsius.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
It is 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 25th of June, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So apparently we have to be ready for war on this soil. The RAF are going to carry nuclear warheads for the first time since the Cold War. The Prime Minister has said we can no longer take peace for granted.
Yes, the Prime Minister sitting now next to Donald Trump in this NATO meeting, while NATO boss Mark Rutte praises Trump to the skies, saying we're all going to spend 5% because of him. I'll bring you more details shortly.
And our B-2 pilots made this all possible. They had a magnificent hit in the dark of night with no moon, no light, no nothing. They hit the target perfectly, wiped it out.
Well, that was Donald Trump on his way to the NATO summit, because CNN have reported a leaked intelligence report casting doubt on those claims as to whether they'd obliterated the attack, obliterated rather, the nuclear-making facility. That is CNN's interpretation, by the way, of that intelligence report, which we've not seen.
And as you might have heard just before the break, the Prime Minister is facing an almighty backbench rebellion, more than 120 MPs over his welfare reforms bill. How damaging would that be?
Faster deportation. Government outlining plans in the Commons today. They want to deport foreign criminals after serving just 30% of their sentence rather than 50%. We're still asking the question, kick them out straight away.
And you don't want to miss this. Mobile phone theft crackdown. GB News has been given exclusive access to a Metropolitan Police operation tackling gang members stealing enormous amounts of mobile phones.
And we're going to blow our own trumpet. Why shouldn't we? GB News wins big at the TRIC Awards. Breakfast won Best News Programme for the third year in a row. And we're very thrilled for our very own Charlie Peters, who was awarded Best News Presenter.
And billionaire Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, media personality Lauren Sanchez are about to tie the knot in Venice in one of the most high-profile weddings of the year. Bill Gates, Kim Kardashian and Katy Perry could all be in attendance.
Couldn't have anything worse.
Media personality, I quite like that as a description. What some might say that Lauren Sanchez is just marrying very, very well. Have you seen her? She never has any clothes on.
When you consider how many billions he's got in the bank, don't you think she could afford to buy clothes that actually cover her body? And also, couldn't she have gone somewhere which does plastic surgery in a more subtle way?
Can I just say, Tom, who is a very straight man in the gallery, in fact, he's married to somebody else, was saying that actually he might even marry Bezos. Frankly, I think there's a lot of people who marry Bezos. He's one of the richest men in the world.
When I was in France once, I saw his yacht out in the ocean. It was like an ocean-going aircraft carrier. It was enormous.
Vast wealth.
I thought I might get an invite on, but I didn't.
I don't know. And listen, after the news, I'm going to tell you what happened at the TRIC Awards yesterday, because the papers are reporting that Eamon Holmes was booed. Not true. Don't miss it.
If they are booing us, it's because they don't like the fact we are the insurgents.
We're going to talk about this.
We speak for
in just a minute.
Normal people.
Sophia's waiting for us. Here's Sophia Hill with the news.
Bev, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Top stories. Keir Starmer will announce the biggest boost to Britain's nuclear defences in a generation at this week's NATO summit. Leaders have arrived this morning ahead of day 2, where the Prime Minister will confirm the UK is buying 12 new fighter jets and joining NATO's nuclear mission, a major step that gives the RAF nuclear strike capability again for the first time since the Cold War. Downing Street says it's about keeping Britain safe in an increasingly dangerous world, with the Prime Minister saying we can't take peace for granted anymore. GB News spoke to Defence Minister John Healey earlier about the industrial benefits for Britain.
It's about strengthening the security within NATO because it strengthens the deterrence that we all depend on, and it also strengthens our UK industrial base because 20,000 jobs are supported by this programme, over 100 companies in the supply chain in various parts of the UK. So this is a good day for security, it's a good day for British industry, and it's a good day also for the strength of the NATO alliance as leaders meet this afternoon here in The Hague.
President Trump says the US military strikes on Iran ended the war, and he believes it was a total obliteration. Speaking at the NATO summit this morning, the US president also confirmed that the US was on board with NATO's plans for Article 5. Conversations have been somewhat dominated by tensions in between Israel and Iran following a fragile start to their ceasefire deal. President Trump replied confidently when asked if the US would strike again.
I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. Very tough to rebuild because the whole thing has collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the tunnels are totally collapsed.
But if they rebuild?
Well, they've already looked at the tunnels. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military.
Back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer says he'll press ahead with welfare cuts, even as Labour MPs threaten a rebellion. The Prime Minister's confirmed next week's vote won't be treated as a confidence issue, insisting that the current system is failing everyone and backing a clear moral case for reform. Proposed changes would tighten access to personal independence payments and reshape support for the under-22s. But pressure is mounting, with more than 100 MPs, including senior committee chairs, having signed an amendment that could sink the bill. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives could back the reform if 3 key changes were made, but has warned that serious flaws remain. And billions of pounds clawed back from the NHS waste will now be pumped into the working-class communities that need it most. That's the pledge from Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who's speaking in Blackpool today to outline his plan to tackle health inequality head-on. He says more than £2 billion saved from what he calls wasteful spending, like bloated back office costs and agency fees, will now fund better GP access, more equipment and extra medicines in poorer areas. It's part of the new 10-year plan to rebuild the NHS, and Mr Streeting says it's about getting the basics right where they've long been ignored the longest. Police are calling on phone companies to do more as violent smartphone theft spirals out of control. In London alone, 80,000 phones were stolen last year, with many snatched by organised gangs targeting people in the street and even raiding phone shops.
Please open the door, it's going in!
GB News got rare access to the Met's flying squad as they took down a gang accused of stealing hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of smartphones in robberies across the UK. The Met wants manufacturers to step up by cutting off stolen phones from cloud services, therefore making them useless to criminals.
3/4 of those phones that leave the UK connect to networks and cloud services overseas. So essentially they're being reused as a second-hand phone in a foreign market. I think that phone companies could work more closely together to block access to cloud services for those devices. So that phone is still a phone in that foreign country, but it can't connect to cloud services and therefore can't operate as a smartphone.
And GB News has won big at this year's TRIC Awards. GB News Breakfast, presented by Eamon Holmes, Ellie Costello, Stephen Dixon and Anne Diamond, scooped the gong for Best News Programme, and national reporter Charlie Peters won Best News Presenter. The awards are voted for by the public, so we want to say a big thank you to our viewers and listeners. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now, more from me in just under half an hour, but first let's check in on the markets.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.361 and €1.172. The price of gold is £2,442.55 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,769 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev until midday. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, GB News had a wonderful day yesterday.
I couldn't be there, sadly, to see the great triumphs.
You couldn't be there, Andrew Pearce. There's nothing you would hate more than sat in a room with people that you've written awful things about over the years. I don't think you'd be safe. But listen, we won brilliantly yesterday. Eamon Holmes is there on the stage. You can see Eamon accepting the award for Best News Show on behalf of himself and Stephen Dixon and Ellie Costello and Anne Diamond, of course, and Charlie Peters won Best News Presenter, particularly for his work on the grooming gangs. Now, as you know, GB News has been controversial since day one, and I think that's a great thing. Who doesn't want to be disrupting the news agenda in this country, in the landscape? Well, yesterday, some of the online press this morning are saying that Eamon Holmes was booed. Mail Online have run a piece with the headline, Eamon Holmes faces a chorus of boos. This is, frankly, completely untrue. We have been booed in the past. Every year we've been there have been hecklers in the room because they do not like us. That did not happen yesterday. What did happen is Eamon was talking very passionately, saying that he's really proud of the work he does at GB News. And I think it was someone that he knows well. In the crowd, the wine had been flowing, and a woman shouts, "Come on, Eamon, get on with it." And she was very close to the front. That has been interpreted as booing. We didn't get booed yesterday.
One person hardly means it's hardly cheering, is it?
It wasn't cheering. But what's so interesting, the articles online, yes, again, the division between the establishment media and the British public, because the comment section of the articles online saying that Eamon was booed tell you everything. Boo all you want, losers. GB News is the best and most balanced broadcaster in the UK. Charlie Peters is a shining example of a journalist not afraid to pull Labour's dirty little secrets out from under the carpet of lies. This is the kind of comment that is online, drawing a distinction yet again between what the British people think and feel and what the establishment media want you to think and feel. We're watching the footage here of our brilliant Charlie, who's worked so hard on the rape gangs issue. I still call it the grooming gangs. That's one of the things Eamon called out yesterday. He said everyone in this room calls it grooming gangs. You sanitise it. It isn't. They were rape gangs.
They were. And only recently another gang convicted.
And thank you for voting for us. Genuinely, thank you for voting for the morning show, the breakfast show, and thank you for voting for Charlie.
And thank you for watching us and listening.
Can we get nominated next year?
We didn't get nominated.
Lots of people in the room did come up, lots of them saying, we watch you every morning, saying, my mum and dad watch you every morning. So good morning to everybody that I met yesterday, and thank you for supporting us.
Did they say, how can you stand Andrew Pearce?
No, they don't say that anymore. They used to.
They said it to me.
They stayed together for the sake of the kids. I've just realised what you said. They do not say that.
It's been a busy morning at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. I personally think it's a bit of a talking shop, is NATO. President Donald Trump has taken fire at media outlets, particularly CNN, and reiterated that, in his view, and according to his intelligence, Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated, and he disputes the interpretation put on leaked intelligence reports by the leaked interpretation by CNN. They'd only been set back a few months.
This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick.
Usual, typical Donald Trump pulling no punches there. We're looking at the pictures of him next to Keir Starmer at NATO.
He wanted to find out if CNN were in the audience so he could name and shame them.
He does. And that's why he gets a reputation for being a bully, because that is possibly, you know, depending on how you feel about it, you could say that is a pretty extraordinary thing to do to journalists in the room. But frankly, I like it. I like that sort of frankness. I can't bear people tiptoeing around not saying what they really think.
You know, if Mrs Thatcher's press conference was tough, she went for people.
Yeah.
She wouldn't call people scum. She wouldn't, but she would go for the BBC. She would go for a presenter, and she would really go for them. The handbag got wielded.
We lived in an age then where People weren't so easily offended, were they?
Quite.
Well, Keir Starmer this morning
part of the job.
has announced that nuclear warheads will be carried on British fighter jets in a return to the Cold War era.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who is live for us from the NATO summit. Catherine, this is interesting, and it's interesting too because we've got to put it against the backdrop of the fact that Starmer, when he returns from NATO, he's got this huge revolt amongst MPs who don't want to see £5 billion cuts in disability benefits. Then he's announcing today millions and millions and millions on jets bought from America, which will be armed with a nuclear capacity.
Yes, he's facing an absolute nightmare at home, isn't he? Because well over, I think, 123 Labour MPs at the moment have signed this reasoned amendment against the £5 billion of welfare cuts that the government wants to bring in. A nightmare for the Prime Minister. He's still saying there's going to be a vote on it on Tuesday. It looks at the moment, if that happens, he's going to lose. And difficulties abroad too, because we're at the NATO summit. They had expected it to be dominated by Russia and Ukraine. Of course, it's been dominated by discussion of Iran and Israel. Donald Trump clearly saying that the intelligence, which many US outlets say mean that the strike that they made on Saturday night was not as successful as they thought. But of course, he is saying that it was obliteration and that ended the war. Time will tell, of course. But today, it's all about the big pledge that Donald Trump wanted. 5% defence spending, defence and new national security spending bundled in together in the next 10 years, because this is what Donald Trump has said for a very, very long time. And at the beginning of the meeting that they're all in now, these 32 leaders, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General, praised Donald Trump to the skies. He said, "You are a man of strength and a man of peace." He talked about a dangerous moment, and he said that this rise in defence spending wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Donald Trump in the White House. But everybody now says that, yes, Donald Trump is right. It's all about keeping Donald Trump on side. But he has still been a bit equivocal about Article 5 and whether or not he would honour that. Now, the Prime Minister was asked about that a little bit earlier. He just said NATO is as strong as ever. But let's see.
OK, thank you, Catherine, there in The Hague. And we were thinking, we were both looking, weren't we, what The Hague actually means. We think of it as being
the
court.
Because you think about the International Court.
But it's actually the City of Peace and Justice, administrative capital of the Netherlands.
But just to go back to this victory of Trump, look, I think he's had a great victory in Iran. This is not a victory over countries saying they'll spend 5%. It's Pyrrhic, because I just don't think for a second Keir Starmer is capable of delivering. He can't stop the small boats. He's certainly not going to be able to get defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2025, when he's almost certainly, in my view, going to lose the next election, which will be in 2029 latest.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Do you think he comes there for his daily pep talk?
Well, it's true, isn't it? It's absolutely true.
He's got us on the app at the table at The Hague, where he's having his 11s.
A lot of the defence spending, it's not on tanks and army, it's spent on things like pensions, and it's also a big chunk, the thing you're not worried about, the nuclear, maintaining the nuclear deterrent.
Not worried about that. Now, asylum seekers living in Home Office accommodation are working as delivery drivers, according to a report.
Who'd have thought?
And I'm sure it's been happening long before Labour came to power.
Let's speak to the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who's been very vocal about this. Chris Philp, morning to you. When I read this on the front page of The Sun yesterday, I thought, I thought this has probably been going on for years, because when they often clatter into me on their delivery bikes on the street and I remonstrate with them, they can't speak a word of English.
Yeah, well, look, I'm really concerned about this, and that's why last Friday I decided to pay a visit to one of these asylum hotels myself. I'd been tipped off there was one of these hotels in central London that was being used as a base for these illegal immigrants to run Deliveroo bikes and so on. Of course, the people in these asylum hotels have almost entirely crossed the channel by small boats, so they are illegal immigrants. And under the law, they are not allowed to work for the first year at all, and after the first year, only in certain specified professions, which does not include riding a Deliveroo bike. What I found when I got to this hotel was a compound. You may have seen the footage. I put it on Twitter, on my Twitter account. I found a compound full of bikes with Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eat bags on the back. I then spoke to some of the people living in the hotel, and it turned out they had indeed come to the UK by small boat, illegal immigrants. They were from Yemen and they were from Iran. I then spoke to a shopkeeper just over the road who said he had seen them coming and going the whole time with these Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eat bikes. So it's very clear that massive illegal working is going on, and I think it's happening not just at that hotel, but at probably dozens of other hotels around the country.
How are they able,
and what is this?
Sorry, just sorry to interrupt you, but people will be going, how are they able to do it? On a practical level, they presumably have bank accounts into which their wages are being paid. How is it working?
So as far as I'm doing some more investigation into this, but as far as I can tell, what happens is somebody who does have the right to work here signs up to the Deliveroo service as a bike rider, and then they rent out their login details to an illegal immigrant. It's either that, or Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats don't actually, they claim they do checks, that's what they say when you ask them, but maybe in practice they're not doing those checks. So clearly those companies, when they say, oh, it's all very strict, that is basically a lie, that is complete nonsense, it's not working in practice. They should be doing things like facial recognition checks using a mobile phone, you know, just like any of us when we're unlocking our iPhone or whatever, you have a facial recognition check, they could do that quite easily. They're obviously not checking the paperwork properly, so these companies need to actually start policing this properly, but it seems to me their business model may well rely on using illegal immigrants, and they've got to stop doing that. But the Home Office are also at fault, because Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is running this hotel. She is spending billions of pounds a year of our money accommodating currently 32,000 illegal immigrants in those hotels and another 60,000 in apartments around the country, costing something like £4 billion a year of our money. And she is running a massive centre for illegal working. The Home Secretary is running one herself. Okay. So she needs to get that shut down straight away.
I hear about your
By the way,
hang on, I want to ask you about...
Hang on, one more point.
No, I want to make you this point to you. Why are you not taking this up with Deliveroo? Why are Deliveroo not in the dock? Because they're breaking the law.
Yeah. Well,
what are you going to do about that?
Yesterday, I wrote to the Home Secretary saying, shut this down. I've written to the 3 chief executives of Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats, asking what's going on. I've asked the Home Office I've asked the Home Secretary to get immigration enforcement to take action against those 3 companies. They should be fined. They should have massive fines levied against them for what they're doing.
And by the way, they're based in Silicon Valley. This is the problem. If you're waving through all the massive technocratic trans-international companies, this is what you're going to be dealing with. Labour's Dame Angela Regal has said this, Chris Phil. Just 6 weeks ago, you voted against a new legislation that will make it illegal for delivery companies and other businesses in the gig economy to hire people with no right to work in this country. So what would you say to that? It's your fault. You're blocking Labour doing anything about it.
Well, I mean, that's obviously nonsense. First of all, Labour could shut the illegal working down straight away. They're running the hotel. When I went round there, the security guard was more interested in kicking me out because I was filming than he was about shutting down the Uber Eats bikes that were being run and Deliveroo bikes. So they could shut it down straight away. They're running the hotel. On the point about the bill, that bill that went through Parliament, we did vote against it because it contained a whole load of very bad things. For example, it repealed the Illegal Immigration Act, which we passed in government, which stops illegal immigrants from getting citizenship. It also repealed the Safety of Rwanda Act, which would allow the government to basically immediately deport all illegal immigrants upon arrival back to Rwanda, and their bill repealed that. So that's why we voted against it, because it did those very, very bad things. If they took those bad things out of the bill, yeah, of course we'd support the stuff on illegal working. Of course we'd support that. But the bill did a lot of other things that were very, very bad, and that's why we voted against it.
Chris, we've seen you and Robert Jenrick getting out there with your cameras, shining a light on crime and corruption in this country. Why were you not doing this when you were in government?
Well, look, I mean, when I was police minister, I delivered record ever police numbers. We started pushing the arrest rate up. We clamped down. We did all kinds of things in government. Got more people arrested. I think 40,000 more people got arrested during my last year as police minister compared to previously. But look, I mean, the last government did do a lot. They got the small boat numbers down by 30% last year, and now they're exploding under Labour because Labour have lost control of the borders. We got the Rwanda scheme where every illegal immigrant would have been immediately deported. That was ready to go. We had to pass a law to override the Human Rights Act and override Strasbourg. We finally got that done. The first plane was ready to go just after the election on the 24th of July, but Starmer cancelled it before it took off. And what has happened? There's been a surge in illegal immigration since then, and this year so far, 2025, has been the worst in history. And we've got plans to, we've put plans to votes in Parliament to restore the Rwanda deterrent, remove all illegal immigrants, remove all foreign criminals, have a binding annual cap on inward migration. But Labour vote against all of those ideas.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Chris Philp, their Shadow Home Secretary. We've just got to give you a right of reply. A Home Office spokesperson has said illegal working undermines honest business and undercuts local wages. The public won't stand for it, and neither will this government.
Well, what are they doing about Deliveroo then?
Well, that's why we have taken swift action to launch a nationwide crackdown on illegal working, with arrests up by 51% since we took office.
They never give you the numbers, though, do they? They never tell you how many have been arrested and where are they now. Have they been deported? I bet they haven't.
Plenty more to come this morning. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stick with us.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You have a very nice accent, and I always thought but obviously I'm totally wrong. I've learned something already straight away.
I mean, we've interviewed together on countless occasions. I thought you would have picked up on my English accent.
Oh no, you're just changing it now. You're changing it a bit here.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for you, mate.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chesney. I think it's amazing that we're talking about a tour next March for a man like you, and that shows you the extent to which you have to be organised to do these things. I thought like you're advertising this for this month or next month. Why the need to go so early?
Oh no, it's just to give people plenty of advance notice. These days life comes up very fast, doesn't it? So I'm always touring, Eamon. I've actually got some headline shows coming up next week. I'm in Cardiff and Southampton, but we've just announced this headline tour for next year. So I thought I'd get it out there and let people know in advance.
Good.
And Chesney, just looking at your Instagram now, I mean, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you? Because you've been putting videos out there saying people think I'm a one-hit wonder, but let me tell you, there'll be a lot more songs than just the one that you're most famous for.
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, there are other songs. So looking forward, I've got a new album out right now, Ellie, and it's all been very, very well received. I'm so honoured and grateful for that. And so, yeah, I'll be performing some of this new album out on the road soon. You guys should come.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So mobile phone companies are being urged to do more to help combat an epidemic of smartphone-related crime.
I'm sure we can all relate to this because in London alone, 80,000 smartphones were stolen last year.
Our Home Security Editor Mark White was given exclusive access to the Met's elite flying squad. Have a listen, have a look.
We're on board with these officers from South East London as they prepare to rendezvous with the team from the Met's flying squad. Their target, an organised crime group suspected of involvement in a series of violent robberies. The gang's believed to have struck mobile phone shops in more than a dozen different locations, stuffing holdalls full of high-value smartphones in each raid. This is rare access. The flying squad is the Met's elite robbery and kidnap unit, dealing with some of the country's most hardened criminals.
Please open the door, it's going in!
Inside are the two suspects they're looking for.
We'll come down and speak to him just 2 seconds, all right? You're under arrest for mobile phone shops between March and June 2025.
As a drug sniffer dog arrives to help search the property, other officers find what they think is a small packet of drugs thrown from a bedroom window.
It's crack cocaine.
Well, it's just after 6 a.m. and the two suspects at this address have had a rather rude awakening. Raids are also happening at another dozen addresses around this area.
Unarmed assets driving around trying to help over.
The UK's major cities have seen an epidemic of phone thefts. In London alone, 80,000 smartphones were stolen last year. Half of all street robberies are linked to mobile phones, netting the thieves up to £400 for each device. Now, organised crime groups, like the one targeted by the flying squad, are stealing in bulk and making huge profits. These are expensive pieces of equipment they're stealing.
Absolutely. One iPhone can cost in the region of £1,200. In some incidents, they've stolen up to 72 handsets at a time. So it's really, really lucrative.
So we're talking £100,000 a raid?
Yes, absolutely.
Police! A major drive by the Metropolitan Police has seen a 15% drop in phone thefts this year. The Scotland Yard commander, tasked with reducing phone robberies, believes the phone companies can also help in that effort.
About 3/4 of those phones that leave the UK connect to networks and cloud services overseas. So essentially they're being reused as a second-hand phone in a foreign market. We think that phone companies could work more closely together to block access to cloud services for those devices. So that phone is still a phone in that foreign country, but it can't connect to cloud services and therefore can't operate as a smartphone.
The smarter and more expensive the device, the more attractive they become to the criminals trying to cash in on this highly lucrative trade. But today, at least, the flying squad believe they've dealt a major blow to one organised crime group in the battle against the phone thieves. Mark White, GB News, South East London.
Absolutely fascinating. It's exactly what the police should be doing.
And it's satisfying to see somebody get caught for that.
Because I hate it when people think, oh, it's only a mobile phone, it's mine. It's hugely important to people to have their phone.
Massively
it's a form of
inconvenient.
security now. It's the way you link to your kids and stuff.
Absolutely. Right, don't forget.
So more of it. Now, don't forget, it's Prime Minister's Questions today, and it is Angela Rayner again, because our Prime Minister, of course, is hobnobbing at the NATO summit in Holland. This time he's up against that well-known Tory figure, Mel Stride, who's the Shadow Chancellor.
Mel Stride always does a very good job at PMQs, I think.
He does, yeah.
Tom Howard and Gloria Di Piero want your question this afternoon to put to their panel. So what would you be asking at PMQs? gbnews.com/your say. What is the burning question you would want to hear today? Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a rather cloudy start to the day, though turning brighter by this afternoon. Can't rule out some showers though, and for many it is going to be another warm and muggy feeling day. And where we see the bulk of the cloud this morning, that's going to be where we see this weakening frontal feature just to the north of Wales and central parts of England, where at times we could see some drizzle also across southern parts of Wales, and also a fair few showers just moving their way into western parts of Scotland, northern parts of England. These should be mostly light, and by this afternoon there should be plenty of bright or sunny spells, but once again a few showers just starting to clip into the southwest. But for many it is going to be a warm and muggy day, particularly across the southeast. Highs of around 28 degrees Celsius here, but a chance that a few localised spots could be a degree or two higher. So to finish off the day then across Scotland, once again plenty of clouds, still a few showers clipping into western areas, and similar for Northern Ireland, a cloudy end to the day, but seeing a few more breaks in those cloudier skies across northern central parts of England, but across western Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall starting to see some showers push up here. And it's really across this south and southeast that there is a risk of seeing some quite heavy showers during parts of the night, particularly as we head towards the morning. Parts of Kent, for example, could see some quite heavy, if not quite thundery showers during most of the night, but by the early hours of the morning most of these should have cleared away. But plenty of rain still moving in from the west, this heavy at times, and for many once again it is going to be a warm, muggy and quite uncomfortable night, particularly across the south. Plenty of outbreaks of rain by Thursday, sweeping their way eastwards. This could turn heavy and blustery at times, particularly across Scotland, but most of this drifting eastwards by the time we reach the afternoon. So once again, plenty of bright and sunny spells by the time we reach later into the afternoon, and feeling a little fresher too, but still warm in the sunshine, highs reaching 25 degrees Celsius.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The headlines just after 11:30. Sir Keir Starmer is set to announce the biggest boost to Britain's nuclear defences in a generation at this week's NATO summit. The UK will buy 12 new fighter jets and join NATO's nuclear mission. Meanwhile, President Trump says the US military strikes on Iran ended the war, and he believes it was a total obliteration. Speaking at the NATO summit in The Hague this morning, the US president also confirmed that the US was on board with NATO's plans for Article 5. Back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer says he'll press ahead with welfare cuts, even as Labour MPs threaten a rebellion, as he confirms next week's vote won't be treated as a confidence issue. Police are calling on phone companies to do more as violent smartphone theft spirals out of control. 80,000 phones were stolen in London last year alone, as organised gangs targeted pedestrians and phone shops. And the rich and famous descend on Venice as Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' multi-million-pound wedding kicks off, as the billionaire will marry Lauren Sanchez with costs of up to £41 million.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back.
What is the time?
11:37. We are back in the studio with Stephen Pound and Mike Parry, of course. Right, shall we talk about... what do you want to talk about, fellas?
Well, I'm not totally against these people who are rolling around on bikes delivering food, OK? Now, you see, once again, I think we've got a huge problem with people coming across the channel in dinghies. I don't seem to be able to do anything about that. But I've got a theory that when it's hard, the government turn a blind eye to it, and it's very hard to stop the boats. When it's easy, because it's easy to nick these people because they're driving around on bikes on the roads in full view of everybody, but actually, aren't they contributing to our society by providing a job and a service and not hanging around on street corners?
Let me just explain to people who won't understand how this works. You can apply to be a delivery driver, and you do it on your phone, you sign up, you're all there, you're done.
Yeah.
You then find your mate who came across on a dinghy. A freshie is what the youngsters call them.
Yeah.
You find a freshie and you say to him, I'm going to get paid £10 per delivery on my phone. I'm keeping 5, you're keeping 5, off you go.
But you're doing the work.
Not
only
so the
that,
outsourcing.
The whole thing about illegal immigration is the push factor and the pull factor.
Yeah.
We know what the push factor is. Obviously, if you're in Iran, you want to get the hell out. But the pull factor is people are actually advertising. Come to this country now. You can drink alcohol, you can do all you want, but you can also get a job on a bike. One of the reasons I have a problem with these delivery drivers, firstly, they are multiplying. They're all over the place. They really are. Secondly, they're actually quite dangerous because they're belting through the streets. And the other thing is, what are they doing to our existing restaurant trade, our existing cafes?
Yes, but there's a demand for them.
Well,
I think a lot of the
I don't think it's particularly healthy for people to sit at home and order up their supper.
But that's a societal thing.
What's happened to society? You should be able to go out and eat together.
Well,
You should-
100%.
Hang on. It's been
a group of people sitting in, watching Netflix and ordering a burger.
Steve, it's been going on in America for decades, because you order pizza in Manhattan, you don't go out and get it.
Would you like to live in American society?
Well, I did, and I used to do it all the time. Chinese, spaghetti, anything you wanted, you could get there. But what I'm saying
spaghetti, I'll draw the line at that.
What I'm saying is, these little hotels that have been taken over in places like Altrincham, where there is nothing for the people who are in the hotels to do. At least these people are occupying themselves with something to do, and if they're earning money, they're being productive.
Let's okay, where we do agree. Well, I would want to get anybody who's in this country, legally or illegally, needs to get processed immediately. If they've got a right to stay here, let's get them working and, most importantly, paying tax.
Could we also get the millions who are going to continue to receive benefits, Stephen, because your lot are going to blink over this benefits?
Absolutely.
Vote next week. Could we get some of the people who should be at work off their backside and into work? Because I don't buy the figure. 1,000 people a day need to sign up to this personal independence. But I don't buy it.
Because they've got mental health problems.
Yeah.
This is the new...
30,000 a month every month.
Andrew, I think there's one thing we can all agree on. It is that the present welfare bill is utterly unsustainable. We cannot go... How come young people, people 18, 19, 20 are suffering from such dreadful mental conditions that they can...
Which they've never had before.
You've also got the workless families that go scything through the generations down there.
Well, we've had that for years.
And what happens as soon as the Labour Party, God love us, as soon as we actually start saying, look, this cannot be right. What happens? The gates of hell burst open and we've got people going to bring the government down.
Yeah, but Steve...
When can we be grown up about this?
But Steve, you've got to bare your soul and be absolutely honest. We know...
I'm not going to do that on prime-time television.
We know that the welfare bill in this country, it's £350 billion, a part of it is people who are too idle to work and who game the system. And some of them even come out of university and go straight onto the welfare benefit system. That's appalling. That is the death of a generation. It's got to be clamped down upon. We've got to get rid of the people. Pips, I think some of the people deserve that. But young people who can work and who don't, but get free money off me, the taxpayer, I'm paying free money to these people to be idle, that is a curse, and it's got to be sorted.
We made them idle in lockdowns. I'm sorry, but there was a whole generation that would never have considered sitting at home and being given what was called a furlough. They didn't even think they were ever going to take money from the state. And I'm sorry, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak and all that lot, they said, no, stay at home, you're not going to die, you're not really going to know anyone's going to die. But stay at home, we're going to give you money, and you've changed the mindset of the generation.
I totally agree, but again, it's a hard problem which nobody will address and try to fix, because it's too hard. I see people hanging around in pubs all day, not me, I just happen to be in there occasionally, right, who simply get their money off the state. For research purposes, they get their money off the state, and that is a lifestyle. If you've had a lifestyle like that for 18 months, you never get off it. You can never change.
I think Bev makes an incredibly important point. During the lockdown, it's me and a friend of mine from Hemel Town Football Club, Elsa Jones, we walked to every single non-league football club within the M25 over the 2 years. And London people said, They said, oh, no, we just sat at home. I said, look, the minute you sit at home for a year, 18 months, you are locked into that cycle.
You weren't allowed out of your house more than once a day, remember? The teenagers were terrified of getting arrested if they went visiting
Well, we
football
walked every
grounds.
non-league football ground. And because we walked, there's just the two
you
of us.
broke the law. You were only allowed out once a day for a very short walk, Steve.
We walked pretty quickly.
Well, this is the thing, you know, that's the problem.
I'm sorry. Let them nick me for that.
This government could have come in and said, we have got to change our mindset. We've got to have a paradigm shift again.
It's a lifestyle, isn't it?
That's
it's a
they're not doing it. They're not strong enough to do it.
Listen to Liz Kendall, what she talks about.
They are going to blink, Stephen.
I don't think they can.
They are going to blink.
Andrew,
they're going to come forward with concessions, mark my words.
I think the worrying thing is, Andrew, I was an MP for 22 years, and you probably know more about the inner workings of Parliament than ever I did, because sometimes, you know, you get too close to it, you can't... From where I was sitting, I was in the Whip's office, I cannot see how the government can possibly allow this to, A, become a vote of confidence, and B, give it as a free meal ticket for 123 Labour MPs.
Right.
They can't do it.
Pound and Parry, thank you so much.
Financially, it's unsustainable.
Brilliant, as always. It is Wednesday. Let's go over to see Gloria and Tom in Westminster.
And ask them their opinion.
Hello there. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Prime Minister's away at NATO this week, as you've been discussing this morning. So we will be seeing Angela Rayner again. And she'll be facing Mel Stride, who's the Shadow Chancellor.
And there's a lot going on in politics this week, of course, because the Labour Party is facing such a huge rebellion. 120 MPs, Labour MPs, willing to defy the Prime Minister. Now, even though he's got a massive, massive majority, just 80-odd MPs wipes away that majority. So he is deep below the waterline when it comes to this welfare reform. Gloria and I have been speculating whether or not Angela Rayner will actually have to say something before Prime Minister's questions to defuse the situation.
Indeed. It's going to be an exciting one. But we want to hear from you because we've got our panel of politicians. It's all about your questions. So get them sent in to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Very good.
Thank you, guys. Up next, we love this story, don't we?
We do.
Because it's just astonishing. 107 days since the bin workers in Birmingham are still on strike.
Can you believe it? No end in sight. We're going to be joined by the union behind this strike. They maintain they're doing the right thing. I suspect if you live in Birmingham, you might not agree. But first, if you want some holiday sun to escape those stinking piles of rubbish in Birmingham, stay tuned.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of heat at the moment across the Mediterranean. Most places sunny, and the peak of the heat over the next few days will be through central parts of the Mediterranean. A little cooler for the time being through Spain, Portugal, Canaries as well, where it's, well, typically breezy. And it's also breezy for the Balearics, but we've got this plume of heat now through central parts of Europe. Certainly some unusually high temperatures to Italy, into Croatia, and then later on across parts of Greece. Mid to high 30s widely.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Local authority workers who are members of Unite have overwhelmingly voted against this year's pay rise offer of 3.2% as the bin strike in Birmingham reaches its 107th day. The standoff between the council and Unite looks no closer to a resolution.
Birmingham Council, they say only 17 workers would lose up to £6,000, so that seems a lot of money to lose to me. And all have been offered alternative roles or redundancies, saying they've made a fair and reasonable offer.
So we're now joined by the National Lead Officer for Unite, the union, One Kassab. Good morning, One. Just tell us your opinion on this hideous story for the residents of Birmingham.
Good morning. Well, we've been willing to negotiate from day one, but it's good to finally see the leader of the council for the first time a few days ago admit that people will actually be losing pay as a result of the council's proposals. Because up until recently, he's been saying that nobody would lose pay. So that's some progress that he actually admits that that's the case. But to be clear about the numbers, because the council have now included drivers as part of their proposals, there are around 200 drivers employed by the council, and they stand to lose around £8,000 a year. That's the difference between the two grades. So look, we are still in talks. The ACAS process continues. Obviously, while that process continues, the rules are that we don't give out the details of those talks. But the fact that the council leader has now admitted that there is a pay loss is some progress.
People will struggle to whoever's right or wrong in this, will struggle to think that for 107 days now, the strike has been going on. There'd been all sorts of stoppages, I think, before the all-out strike was called. It's a health hazard, it's antisocial, it's making Birmingham an international laughingstock. Do you not feel any guilt at all over your role in this?
No, I don't feel guilt, because we've got to remember that what we're talking about here is a pay cut. We are talking about people losing huge amounts of money. And look, you're absolutely right about the health emergency and the safety risks. But if that's the situation when these guys are not at work, then that's an indication of how important their job is. That's why they shouldn't be losing up to £8,000 a year. The other reason why I do not feel guilty is because we've been willing to engage. We sat down at ACAS, we reached what we thought was some kind of ballpark type agreement we can work around. And then when that got back to commissioners who are currently running Birmingham City Council, that ended up being drastically watered down. Look, we will sit down, we will talk, we will negotiate, and we are happy to try and find a resolution.
What optimism can you give the people of Birmingham? Very briefly, when is this going to be sorted?
I can't give you a time about when it's going to be sorted. The optimism is that we are ready to negotiate. we have been willing to make concessions. We have already made concessions even before the strike started. So that's an indication of where we are as far as the negotiating position is concerned. We are ready to sit down and negotiate.
All right, One Kesab there from Unite. It's PMQs today after your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a rather cloudy start to the day, though turning brighter by this afternoon. Can't rule out some showers though, and for many it is going to be another warm and muggy feeling day. And where we see the bulk of the cloud this morning, that's going to be where we see this weakening frontal feature just to the north of Wales and central parts of England, where at times we could see some drizzle also across southern parts of Wales, and also a fair few showers just moving their way into western parts of Scotland, northern parts of England. These should be mostly light, and by this afternoon there should be plenty of bright or sunny spells, but once again a few showers just starting to clip into the southwest. But for many it is going to be a warm and muggy day, particularly across the southeast. Highs of around 28 degrees Celsius here, but a chance that a few localised spots could be a degree or two higher. So to finish off the day then across Scotland, once again plenty of clouds, still a few showers clipping into western areas, and similar for Northern Ireland, a cloudy end to the day, but seeing a few more breaks in those cloudier skies across northern central parts of England. But across western Wales, parts of Devon and Cornwall, starting to see some showers push up here, and it's really across this south and southeast that there is a risk of seeing some quite heavy showers during parts of the night, particularly as we head towards the morning. Parts of Kent, for example, could see some quite heavy, if not quite thundery showers during most of the night. But by the early hours of the morning, most of these should have cleared away. But plenty of rain still moving in from the west, this heavy at times. And for many, once again, it is going to be a warm, muggy and quite uncomfortable night, particularly across the south. Plenty of outbreaks of rain by Thursday, sweeping their way eastwards. This could turn heavy and blustery at times, particularly across Scotland, but most of this drifting eastwards by the time we reach the afternoon. So once again, plenty of bright and sunny spells by the time we reach later into the afternoon, and feeling a little fresher too, but still warm in the sunshine, highs reaching 25 degrees Celsius.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It is, of course, Wednesday, and so no doubt you will be staying tuned to watch PMQs this afternoon. Not the Prime Minister, though, is it, Andrew?
No, it's Andrew Rayner, who I always think acquits herself rather well at the dispatch box, actually. As I said last week, I do not understand why Kemi Badenoch sticks to the convention where she feels she can't ask the questions, because I think she should.
Yeah, I agree. Stella Creasy there, standing up. And, no, I think Angela Rayner does all right. You know what? She's a northern lady who likes a row.
She does. And she holds her own. Stella Creasy, by the way, she's the Walthamstow MP speaking. She's one of those who's involved in the Great Benefits Revolt, which is going to be all-consuming by the time the Prime Minister comes back. Yeah, absolutely. And it's Chris Bryant speaking currently at the moment. He's the Culture Minister. And Lucy Powell, the Leader of the Commons, next to him. She, of course, is the one who said, foolishly, if they got rid of the winter fuel allowance, if they kept the winter fuel allowance, there'd be a run on the pound. Stupid thing to say.
Why was that a stupid thing to say?
Because there wasn't a run on the pound. There's not going to be a run on the pound. They're restoring, there won't be a run on the pound. Could take a lot more than that.
Yes.
It's 1.25 billion, that's peanuts in terms of government spending.
It's been interesting to see what they talk about. So much international news at the moment going on. There's so many big global stories, particularly the
Tories will go on. The Tories will go on benefits because Labour are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Labour MPs won't want to be clapping and cheering their leader, because if 123 have signed this motion, you can be certain there's dozens more want to, but it's too scared to.
Yeah.
For various reasons, because of wish to get promoted, or they've had under pressure from the whips. But that will be the biggest. It would be interesting if there's even a hint from Angela Rayner that she's not as signed up to these cuts as Keir Starmer.
Met somebody from the Cabinet Office last night. I was at a 4th of July party at
she's such a name dropper.
At the ambassador's residence, or American ambassador's residence.
Isn't it magnificent?
Magnificent. I mean, why, when I was growing up, did nobody say to me, you know what, you should be an ambassador?
Oh, great job.
Great job, best job in the world.
And you get Ferrero Rocher chocolates.
Somebody in the office did point out to me, Bev, to be an ambassador, you have to be very diplomatic. And that might be why you were never in the frame for it.
Might rule you out.
But the best job in the world, and we were there. But anyway, I met someone from the Cabinet Office, and he was saying that in the mornings, there's TV in there, and they watch Britain's Newsroom. So very good morning to you.
Yeah, they want to know.
Everybody in the Cabinet Office.
They want to know what mischief they're causing. I think now the Speaker is calling PMQs. So we're handing over now to Tom and
Gloria.
In their case.
Right honourable friend, the Prime Minister was attending their NATO summit in The Hague. At this time of international volatility, we are working with our allies to de-escalate the tensions in the Middle East and to ensure the conflict does not intensify further. Our aim continues to be preventing Iran from securing nuclear weapon and to urge the Iranians to return to negotiations. Mr. Speaker, the situation in Gaza remains the gravest concern. Seeing the return of more hostages' bodies and that of Shay Leveson and the Israeli Witch family is heartbreaking. The remaining hostages must be released, and while aid must be delivered at greater speed and volume. Mr. Speaker, this week is Armed Forces Week. Our commitment to armed forces is unwavering. The Strategic Defence Review outlines how we will give our armed forces better pay, better housing,